The story starts, and our protagonist Yuya Tenjo notices a girl being harassed by some boys. Yuya then tells the boys to let the girl go, and the boys ask him if he has any problem with them. Yuya then mentions that the girl clearly doesn't want to hang out with him. This makes the boys angry, and they beat Yuya up. The police then comes there, and the boys run away. The girl then checks up on Yuya, and she offers to help him, but Yuya mentions that he is fine, and he walks away. On his way to home, Yuya remembers that his grandfather told him to be kind to others, and he mentioned that sometimes it takes courage to be kind. Yuya reaches home, and he thinks that he knows that others are repulsed by him because of his looks, and not only his classmates but his parents also treat him differently because of them. Yuya thinks that it must be because his brother and sister are beautiful, and he mentions that the harshness around him escalated in middle school. Yuya then enters his house, and he mentions that his grandfather was the only one who always took care of him. He then remembers that his grandfather told him that happiness will surely come for him as long as he is kind to others. Yuya then remembers his grandfather's death, and he mentions that his grandfather gave his house and all of his saving to him. His parents tried to take it away from him, but his grandfather had made thorough preparations to prevent it from happening. His parents then left, and they abandoned his upbringing, and he took on part-time jobs to support himself. The scene changes and Yuya is attending his school's graduation ceremony. Some boys from the school then chase Yuya down, and they beat him up, telling him that he will always be their punching bag even if he graduates from middle school. Yuya mentions that he is going to be late for his part-time job, but they don't listen to him, and they beat him up while his siblings watch him getting beat. In the evening, Yuya goes to his part-time job, and he is fired because of being late. Yuya then goes to his home, and he eats some instant noodles. He then goes to the bathroom, and he cries with frustration. He breaks the mirror in anger, and he thinks that even if he graduated, nothing is going to change for him. He then punches the wall, and a hidden door opens up, taking Yuya to another room. Yuya notices that the room is filled with bizarre things, and he remembers that his grandfather was always visiting various places around the world, and he would always bring strange souvenirs. He thinks that this room must be where his grandfather stored those things, and he then notices a strange door in the room. Curious about the door, Yuya opens it and he notices that there is another room on the other side of the door. Yuya crosses over to the other side, and a menu pops up telling him that he has gained some titles. Seeing the title Off-Worlder, Yuya wonders if he is in another world, and he appraises the door. A menu pops up again, and it tells Yuya that this is the door to the other world, and the first person to open it becomes the master of this door. Yuya then notices in the menu that he has a function called Cash Out, and he wonders what he can cash out. He also has functions called Transfer and Entrance Restriction, and he finds out that with Transfer he can transfer the gate to his current location, and with Entrance Restriction, only people authorized by the owner can pass through the door. Yuya thinks that all of this seems like a game, and he wonders if he can check his stats. Yuya then checks his stats, and he notices that all of his stats are at level 1. Yuya then notices a menu for bonus points, and the menu explains that bonus points can be used to increase his skill levels, and he will receive 10 bonus points when he levels up. But if he has the Off-Worlder title, then he will receive 20 bonus points per level up, and if he is a first-time visitor to another world, then he will receive 100 points per level up. Yuya then opens up the window of the house, and he realizes that he is really in another world. He then notices a note left at the table, but he can't read it. He then gets a skill called Language Comprehension, and the skill enables him to read and write every language. Yuya reads the note, and he finds out that before dying the owner of this house left the house and everything in it to anyone who can find the house first, and the ownership of the house will be automatically renewed by magic. The house is protected by a barrier and nobody can break into the house. In the menu, Yuya notices that the house belonged to a sage, and he wonders who that sage could have been. Yuya then checks out the weapons in the house, and he finds a full sword, and the menu explains that this is the greatest sword. Its blade can never dull, and it can slash through anything. Yuya then goes to the garden outside of the house, and he tries swinging the sword. This gives him the swordsmanship skill, and he thinks that he got the skill so fast because of the Off-Worlder title, as it can help him learn skills more easily. Yuya then bring out a spear called Absolute Spear, and it is an unbreakable spear which is sure to hit when you throw it, and it also comes back to the owner. Yuya then wields a death scythe which can even kill the god of death, and a single scratch from it is fatal. He then checks out the Infinity Gauntlets, and it can increase the power of his blows. He then wields the Infinity Bow, and it is a formless bow which is capable of generating an infinite number of arrows according to the will of the wielder. Yuya then notices that he has gained many skills relating to the weapons he just wielded, and all the martial arts skills then combine into a single skill called True Martial Arts. Yuya then puts all the weapons in his item box, and before he can put away the spear, a bloody ogre shows up in front of his house. Yuya gets scared, but the ogre can't penetrate the barrier outside the house. Yuya then notices that the ogre is of level 300, and he decides to hit the ogre using his spear. Yuya throws the spear at the ogre, and the spear pierces right through the ogre's chest. The ogre then dies, and Yuya levels up to level 100. Yuya then notices that the ogre dropped a lot of items, and among them are body armors, leg armors, gauntlets, and a rank B magic stone. Yuya also gets 10,000 bonus points, and he uses the points to level up some of his skills. Yuya then gets tired, and he tries to head on home, and a menu pops up asking him if he wants to cash out the items he got from killing the bloody ogre. Yuya decides to cash out, and he gets 1.5 million yen in exchange for the items. A menu then explains that the money is obtained by manipulating information on Earth to not disrupt the economy. Yuya then returns to his home, and while asleep his body goes through drastic changes. When he wakes up, Yuya thinks that he feels strange, and none of his clothes fit him. He goes to look at himself in the mirror, but the mirror is still broken, and he thinks that he doesn't really want to look at his ugly face. Yuya doesn't have anything to wear, and he then finds some clothes in his otherworldly house. The clothes and shoes found by Yuya can be adjusted according to the wearer's size, and they can also maintain the wearer's body temperature. Yuya then waters the sage's garden with an infinite watering can, which can produce infinite amounts of holy water. The holy water can rejuvenate any dying plant, and when drunk by a human the water can recover fatigue and increase magic power. Yuya notices a grass in the garden and he finds out that the grass can cure any illness, and it can even help regrow limbs. Yuya checks out the other plants grown in the garden, and he finds out that all of them are rare plants, and they all have some kind of special ability that can increase his skills once consumed. A level 200 hell slime then appears, and Yuya kills the slime with his spear. The slime drops some slime jelly which can boost his mana and defense stats, and he gets a rank C magic stone and a slime core. He also gets a rare drop item called the Black Moon Necklace, and the item can increase the wearer's stat during night, and it can also convert sunlight into mana. Yuya wears the necklace, and he checks his stats. We notice that Yuya is at level 150 right now, and he then cashes out the magic stone, and he receives 500,000 yen. He uses the money to buy a new uniform, and from then on he spent his days looking around his otherworld home. He mentions that at first the otherworld was just a way for him to forget about the real world, but soon he got curious about it, and he started doing some research. One day a goblin attacks Yuya, and he defeats it easily with his spear. The goblin didn't increase his level, and Yuya thinks that no matter how strong he gets in this world it won't change anything in the real world. It is then time for his first day of high school, and everybody stares at him on his way to school. They all think that he is handsome, and Yuya then goes to his class. The bullies from before then confront him, and they ask him if he is a transfer student. Yuya then introduces himself, and everyone is surprised to see how much he has changed. Yuya then goes to the men's room, and he looks at his face in the mirror, and he can't believe that he is looking at himself. Later the bullies ask Yuya what happened to him over the spring break, and his siblings mention that he can't outdo them no matter what he does. The girl saved by Yuya then comes to the school in a big car, and she greets him. The story continues, and a girl comes to meet Yuya, and she wonders if Yuya has slimmed down. Yuya doesn't remember her, and she reminds him that he saved her at the convenience store. Yuya then remembers her, and he asks her how she knows his name. She mentions that she wanted to thank him, so she had him investigated. She then invites Yuya to join Osei Academy, and she introduces herself as Kaori Hojo, and she is member of the student council in Osei Academy. Her butler mentions that she is the daughter of the chairman of the Osei Academy board, and when his father heard that Yuya saved her from some ruffians, he said that he would like him to attend the academy. Yuya then mentions that he didn't really save her, and he is grateful for the offer, but he doesn't have the academic ability to enroll at Osei Academy. Yuya's siblings then ask Kaori if she would let them enroll instead since they are better than Yuya in academics, and Kaori declines. She mentions that she is deeply indebted to Yuya, and she would not let anyone who insults him enroll at the academy. She states that she also knows about the things that they have done to him as she had them investigated as well, and she tells Yuya that Osei Academy prioritizes strength of character over other academic strengths so his enrollment won't pose a problem. The butler then mentions that she should show the school to Yuya rather than discussing this, and she asks Yuya if that would be alright. Yuya is hesitant, and the butler mentions that she will inform the school of his early departure. Kaori then takes Yuya to Osei Academy, and Yuya mentions that Osei Academy is a prestigious school, and the students enrolled here excel in one field or another. Yuya then meets Kaori's father, and he thanks Yuya for coming here, and he introduces himself as Tsukasa Hojo. He thanks Yuya for saving his daughter, and Yuya mentions that he didn't do much. Tsukasa mentions that Yuya should be proud of his actions, and he then states that he would like for Yuya to attend their school. He mentions that it's to thank him for saving his daughter, so he wouldn't need to pay any tuition fees, and Yuya states that he doesn't have what it takes to attend a school for geniuses. Tsukasa then asks him what the word genius means, and Yuya mentions that a genius is someone who can do anything. Tsukasa then mentions that according to him a genius is someone who is able to find the right way to direct their efforts more quickly than the others while doing a task. Tsukasa mentions that hard work will always get the person closer to the right answer, and Yuya thinks that inborn talents are more important than hard work. Tsukasa mentions that people's talents aren't set in stone when they are born, and they can challenge themselves to acquire talents, and that's what this academy was made for. Tsukasa then tells him that he should try the academy by spending today on a trial enrollment, and a teacher named Sawada then comes there, and Tsukasa mentions that he thought that Yuya should attend Miss Sawada's class, and he mentions that Miss Sawada is an authority in the science world, and her classes are easy to understand so she is popular with the students as well. The scene cuts to Yuya waiting outside the classroom of Osei Academy, and he is nervous to be in the same class as a bunch of geniuses. He thinks that he might be an odd man out, and Miss Sawada tells the class that she would like to introduce them to a new student. Yuya then goes in, and he introduces himself to the entire class. He mentions that he is here for his trial enrollment, and everyone in class is stunned by how handsome he is. Yuya takes the silence as a bad sign, and Miss Sawada tells him to take the seat by the window. Miss Sawada then tells everyone to open their textbooks, and she asks Yuya to share a book with Hyodo. Yuya says hi to Hyodo, but she doesn't seem that interested in talking to him. Yuya wonders if he made her hate him, and the class continues. Yuya thinks that the classes weren't all that different from what he was used to, but the students here were more proactive. At lunch break everyone swarms Yuya, and they have all kinds of questions for him. Yuya feels overwhelmed, and a guy then tells everyone to calm down. Everyone then apologizes, and leaves him alone, and the guy mentions that they are just curious about him. He introduces himself as Ryo Igarashi, and he wonders if Yuya would like to join him in the cafeteria. Yuya agrees, and they go to the cafeteria. At the cafeteria, Yuya is surprised to see that everything on the menu costs less than 500 yen, and Ryo mentions that the daily special is free. Yuya thinks that this is paradise, and they then buy their lunch. A guy named Shingo then invites them to sit with him, and he introduces himself to Yuya. Shingo and Ryo then talk about anime, and Yuya asks Ryo if he watches anime. Shingo mentions that he recommended some to him, and they got him hooked. Shingo then asks Yuya if he is in any of the clubs, and Yuya mentions that he isn't. He asks Shingo and Ryo if they are in any clubs, and Ryo mentions that he is in the Going Home Club. Yuya thinks that it's unexpected, and Shingo mentions that Ryo is good at many sports, so he was invited by lots of clubs, but he couldn't pick one, so he ended up in the Going Home Club. Shingo then mentions that he is in the game club, and he takes out his gaming console. Yuya wonders if Shingo is allowed to bring that to school, and Shingo mentions that he is, and the teachers note that the students won't use them in class. They then talk a bit about games, and the scene cuts to Yuya talking to Tsukasa after the end of school. Yuya mentions that he loved the school, and lessons were easy to understand. He thinks that the students seem to be having fun, and Tsukasa asks him if he will try attending their school. Yuya asks him if he is sure that he wants someone like him, and Tsukasa mentions that he knows that Yuya is worthy of attending this school. Yuya then agrees to attend the school, and he leaves the room. Outside the room, he meets Kaori, and she asks him if he is attending their school. Yuya mentions that he is, and Kaori is glad to hear this. Kaori then invites Yuya to hang out with her at the nearby market, and while in the market Yuya wonders if she comes here with friends. Kaori then mentions that she doesn't hang out with people that much, and because of her father's work, the other students are reserved around her, but she wanted to try coming here with Yuya. Yuya then asks her if she would like to try some crepe, and they buy some crepe. Yuya thinks that he is glad that he converted those drop items into cash, and they then eat the crepes. They both like it, and Yuya mentions that it's so great that it makes him want to try their entire menu. Yuya then asks Kaori how she recognized him, as he has lost a lot of weight, and Kaori mentions that she knew right away, as he had the same kind eyes. Kaori then asks Yuya to call her by her first name, and Yuya agrees. She then offers Yuya some of her crepe, and she mentions that this way he would be closer to completing the menu. Yuya takes a bite, and Kaori then realizes how embarrassing this is. Kaori then apologizes, and Yuya offers her some of his crepe to make things even. Kaori takes a bite, and the others think that they are just too cute. The next day Yuya decides to go back to the other world, as he might not get the time once the enrollment procedure is complete. Yuya wears his armor, and he goes to the other world. He notices that a hell slime is attacking his house, and he thinks that he still gets scared by the monsters, but he slays the slime easily. He collects the drop items, and we see that he has reached level 235. He thinks that he is leveling up more slowly now, and he thinks that this won't change if he stays close to the house. He thinks that there must be more powerful monsters outside the fence, and he leaves the house. Yuya then hears some screams, and he heads towards them with his spear. He notices some dead soldiers at the location, and he sees a level 200 goblin general trying to attack a girl. Yuya attacks the goblin general with his spear, but the goblin general dodges, and Yuya kicks him in the face. The goblin general then attacks Yuya from behind, and Yuya then tries to distract him with his bow, and he finishes him with the Omni Sword. Yuya then checks if the girl is alright, and the girl faints. A few soldiers then come looking for the girl, and Yuya hides his presence with a skill. The soldiers find the girl, and they are glad to see that she is still alive. The story continues with Yuya ironing out his clothes, and he wonders if the girl he saved in the last episode is alright. He thinks that some people came to help her, so she must be okay. Yuya then thinks that he has been wearing this same shirt for days now, and although he washes it every day, he should get some new clothes now that he has money. The scene changes to Yuya visiting a shopping mall, and he thinks that according to the status of his shirt it doesn't get dirty, but he doesn't want anyone to think that he is wearing the same clothes every day. He then notices that everyone in the mall is staring at him, and this makes him nervous. Elsewhere in the mall, a cameraman is angry at a model's manager, because the model is not on time for his shoot. He mentions that the model named Sho has been slacking off lately, and he hates men who slack off. The manager then receives a call, and he mentions that Sho is on his way. A member of the team then tells the cameraman Hikaru that they will have to postpone the shoot by an hour, and Hikaru mentions that the theme of this shoot is My Hot Boyfriend and Me, and it can't be done without a boyfriend. Hikaru states that the female model Miyu has been ready since morning, and he thinks that this is a pickle, as everyone here has other things booked after this. Hikaru then mentions that he has no choice but to use his last resort, and he states that they will have to procure a photogenic man from the shopping mall. Meanwhile, Yuya is shopping and he has no idea what he should buy. Two girls then approach Yuya, and Yuya wonders if this is some kind of high-pressure sales tactic. The girls then ask him if he would like to hang out with them, and Yuya thinks that he would have to turn them down gently to not hurt their feelings, and he politely turns them down, saying that he has other plans today. Hikaru is now looking for a model, and he comes across Yuya on the elevator. Yuya then goes to browse through some shirts, and Hikaru approaches him from behind. The scene cuts to Yuya doing the photoshoot, and he explains that Hikaru asked him to do a shoot, and he agreed knowing that they are in need of help. Yuya now does the photoshoot, and Hikaru tells him to act normal. Yuya is nervous, and Miyu asks him if this is his first time doing this. Yuya mentions that it is, and Miyu states that it can't be helped then. Miyu mentions that he really saved them as this was the only time available on everyone's schedules, and Hikaru thinks that Yuya is still too stiff. Yuya then thinks that Miyu is amazing, and he shouldn't be a burden on the others by being nervous. Hikaru then tells them to link arms, and Yuya gets nervous again. The shoot continues for a while longer, and the scene changes to the other world. The girl saved by Yuya is revealed to be Princess Lexia, and she wonders who was the man that saved her. Princess Lexia then leaves her room, and she tells the soldiers that she is going back to the forest to look for the man that saved her. The soldiers mention that she must have been dreaming, as no human can live in that part of the forest. The princess states that as the member of the royal family she has to express her gratitude to him, and the soldiers mention that she was just exposed to danger in that forest, so she shouldn't go back there. The princess states that they don't have to worry about that, as they will be coming with her this time. Back at the mall, the photoshoot is over, and Miyu apologizes for getting Yuya wrapped up in all this. Yuya then chokes on his drink, and Miyu offers him her handkerchief to wipe it off. Yuya is hesitant to use her handkerchief, and he uses his shirt to wipe it off instead. Yuya then mentions that working as a model taught him how difficult it is, and he states that Miyu is amazing for doing it so naturally. Miyu mentions that she is just used to it, and she also made a lot of mistakes when she was new at it. Yuya then states that he has never worn clothes like this, and his life had no connection with the world of fashion. Even if he saw models in magazines, he thought that his world was totally different from theirs, but today he realized how hard the models and the staff work in the background. Yuya then asks Miyu why she started working as a model, and Miyu mentions that she just wanted to be seen by others. She mentions that her parents were always busy, and they didn't pay much attention to her, so it might have started because she wanted them to notice her, but she then got fans who were cheering her on, and writing her letters, and she wanted to do her best for them. Seeing her in magazines or screens made people happy, and she thought that it would be nice if more people got interested in fashion because of her. The natural conversation between Miyu and Yuya gives Hikaru some chances for a perfect shot, and he takes a few more pictures of them. Sho then arrives at the scene, and girls go crazy after seeing him. Yuya wonders who he is, and Miyu mentions that he is the one who was supposed to do the shoot. Sho then apologizes to Miyu for being late, and he states that they should wrap this silly shoot soon, and get something delicious to eat. Sho then tells Miyu that he knows that she noticed him yesterday, and he mentions that she should have said hello. Yuya then tries to get Sho's attention, but Sho doesn't listen to him. Yuya tries again, and Sho asks him what he wants. Yuya mentions that he thinks that Miyu doesn't like what he is doing, and Sho states that he shouldn't butt in between them. Sho then tries to punch Yuya, but Yuya takes him down. Yuya then wonders if everyone will get mad at him for taking down a model, and the girls in the mall think that he was cool, and they become his fans. Sho then asks who that boy is, and Hikaru states that he has recorded what happened just now. Sho then runs out of the mall, and Miyu thanks Yuya for saving her. Hikaru mentions that this will be the end of Sho's career as he has been behaving badly lately, and nobody will give him work anymore. Miyu then mentions that Sho has been following her around lately, and she didn't know what to do about it. Hikaru apologizes for not noticing it, and he mentions that he will tell the director to have him officially dealt with. Hikaru then asks Yuya if he would like to do more work like this, and he asks him if he would be interested in signing an official contract with them. Yuya politely declines, and he mentions that today was a nice experience for him, but he is still not good with this kind of work, so he believes that he isn't suited for it. Hikaru respects his feelings, and he then mentions that he would like to pay him for his work today, but it wouldn't be good for the agency to pay an amateur, so he would like Yuya to accept these clothes as thanks for all he did today. Yuya hesitates to accept the clothes, but Hikaru still insists, and Yuya accepts them. Yuya then leaves the mall, and the production crew also wraps things up. The scene cuts to Miyu and Hikaru in a car, and Hikaru mentions that it's a shame that they couldn't get Yuya to sign a contract with them. Hikaru then notices that Miyu is blushing while looking at the pictures from their shoot, and Miyu tries to deny that she is blushing. Meanwhile, Yuya unboxes all the clothes he received, and he then goes to the other world. In the other world, the soldiers and the princess are being attacked by some goblins, and the knight Owen tries to protect the princess. The soldiers are having a rough time, and the princess is about to be attacked by a goblin. Yuya then comes there, and he protects the princess by slaying the goblin. Everyone is surprised to see him there, and Yuya then proceeds to kill the rest of the monsters. He then gives some healing potions to the injured soldiers, and the princess approaches Yuya. She mentions that she wishes to tell him something, and she asks him if he would marry her. Everyone is surprised at this, and somewhere in the real world we see that a production agency is in havoc after seeing Yuya shoot, and they try to find his whereabouts. They can't believe that he is really an amateur, and the head of the agency tells the workers to make sure to track down Yuya and sign a contract with him before anyone else does. She thinks that he stands out even when standing next to Miyu, and she states that she can't let someone like him get away. The story continues, and Owen wonders why the princess is suddenly proposing to Yuya. He mentions that even though Yuya saved her, they still don't know anything about him, and the princess states that it was love at first sight. Yuya then intervenes in their conversation, and he mentions that they should come to his house, as it's dangerous here. Owen is surprised to hear that Yuya is living in these forests, and the scene cuts to them arriving at Yuya's house. Owen still can't believe that there is a house in the Great Demon's territory, and Yuya serves tea to his guests. Owen then introduces himself as the Knight Captain of Alcyria Kingdom, and he also introduces Princess Lexia as the first princess of Alcyria Kingdom. Yuya can't believe that Lexia is a princess, and Owen states that it's true, and she is second in line of succession. Yuya then wonders if it's okay for him to talk so casually with a princess, and Owen states that it's fine since this is not an official visit, and Yuya just saved their lives. Yuya then introduces himself, and Owen thinks that his name sounds unfamiliar. The princess wonders if Yuya is a noble from another country, and she speculates that he could also be royalty from another nation. Lexia gets excited over the idea of love between royal families, and Owen thinks that Yuya might be a spy from another country, but after looking at him he thinks that it can't be, and Owen then tells Yuya that they were actually looking for him. He mentions that the princess told them that she was saved by someone a few days ago, and she wanted to thank him in person. The princess then states that since she was unconscious at that time, she didn't get the chance to thank him, and she states that she is glad that she got to meet him again. The princess mentions that her heart has been pounding ever since she met him, and this is the first time she has ever felt like this. She then asks Yuya to marry him again, and Yuya states that he appreciates her feelings, but this proposal is too sudden. The princess then mentions that she knows that love is not that simple, and she knows that it comes with obstacles, as this happens in every romance novel that she has read. The princess then asks Yuya if they could start out as friends, and Yuya agrees to be her friend. Owen then mentions that they have another thing to discuss, and he states that the king also wishes to express his gratitude to Yuya. Owen tells Yuya to have an audience with the king in the royal castle, and he states that he knows that Yuya must be confused, but he can't back down since this is the king's order. Yuya understands, and Owen mentions that their meeting will take place in 5 days' time. Yuya wonders if it is possible to delay this, and Owen states that Yuya can set the date according to his schedule. Yuya then sets the date, and the knights and the princess then leave, and the princess mentions that she will be sure to win his heart the next time they meet. Elsewhere, a man reports to a masked man that the assassins that they sent after Princess Lexia failed in their mission, and the man thinks that they might have encountered some vicious monster in the Great Demon territory. The masked man wonders how the princess is still alive, and the man states that they still haven't figured that out. The man then leaves, and the masked man mentions that he will never forget what Lexia did to him, and he will make her pay for it. Back in the modern world, Yuya marks his meeting with the king on his calendar, and he gets ready for his first day at his new school. Yuya leaves for school, and on the way, everyone stares at him, and they all think that he is handsome. Yuya then arrives at the school, and chairman tells him that he would like to talk to him about various things, but he doesn't have the time right now, and he hopes that Yuya will enjoy his new school life. Yuya then reintroduces himself to the class, and the scene cuts to the class's gym period. The boys are playing soccer, and we see that Ryo is quite good at it. Yuya thinks that Ryo is amazing, and a girl named Kaide Kazama then asks Yuya if he is just going to watch. Yuya mentions that he hasn't received his PE uniform yet, and Akari then tries to make a goal, but he kicks the ball wrongly, and it is about to hit Kaide. Yuya then kicks the ball into the goal, and he saves Kaide. This surprises everyone, and Yuya asks Kaide if she is okay. Kaide mentions that she is fine, and Akari then apologizes to Kaide. Kaide mentions that it's fine, and Akari then introduces himself as the prince of Osei Academy. The others deny his claims of being the prince, and later Kaori notices that the other girls are talking about Yuya in the changing room. They think that Yuya is like a real-life prince, and Kaori asks them what they are talking about. Kaide then tells Kaori that Yuya is just amazing, and she tries to tell her about how Yuya saved her, but Kaori finds her explanation a little hard to follow. Hyodo then explains that Yuya saved Kaide from a ball that came flying her way, and he also made a goal. The other girls mention that it was really surprising and they think that he must already have a girlfriend as he is really great. Kaori and Kaide mention that they still aren't sure about that, and the scene changes to Kaori's class doing PE. Meanwhile, Yuya is studying in his class, and he waves to Kaori on the field. A few bikers then enter the school grounds, and they move in circles around the girls. The teacher in the class then goes to see what's going on, and he tells the students to stay in the class. The students notice that the bikers belong to a gang called Red Ogre, and Yuya thinks that they are affiliated with his siblings. Kaori asks them what business they have here, and she notices that Yuya's siblings are also with them. Yuya's brother mentions that they are here to make Kaori pay for choosing Yuya over them, and Kaori states that they should stop this as the police will be here soon. Yuya's sister mentions that there is still time before the police comes, and they can do various things to her in that time. Araki, a gang member, mentioned that they should take Kaori and get out of here before the police comes, and he orders his men to capture her. Yuya then tries to go save Kaori, but his legs start shaking, and he realizes that he is still scared to face people from his past. His vision then starts to blur, and Yuya then knocks himself out of it by slapping his cheeks. Yuya then jumps out the window, and the students mentions that this is the 4th floor. They wonder if he is okay, and Yuya then goes to save Kaori. Araki mentions that a punching bag like Yuya shouldn't transfer to a fancy school like this, and he states that they will need to teach him a lesson. He tells everyone to attack Yuya, but Yuya dodges every one of his lackeys, and he goes past to save Kaori. A big sumo wrestler then tries to stop Yuya, and he charges at him, but Yuya stops him with a single hand, and he takes him down. Everyone then gets scared of Yuya, and he goes directly to Kaori. Yuya asks her if she is okay, and Kaori states that she is fine. The leader of the Red Ogre then makes his move, and he tries to run Yuya over using his motorbike, but Yuya keeps dodging the bike until it crashes into the wall. The police then arrive at the scene, and they take every one of the gang members into custody. Yuya then asks Kaori if she was scared, and Kaori mentions that she was, but she believed in Yuya. Kaori's knees then give out, and Yuya catches her, and the teachers tell the students to get back to their classes. Yuya's brother then mentions that the Red Ogres are useless, and the leader of the Red Ogre tries to strangle him, saying that this is all his fault. He mentions that none of this would have happened if not for him, and he states that he is going to kill him. Yuya's sister tries to stop him, but he kicks her away as well, and Yuya then stops him from killing his brother. Yuya asks his brother if he is alright, and his brother asks him why Yuya saved him as he has bullied Yuya all this time. Yuya mentions that he has been through a lot because of them, and hasn't forgiven them for it, but he can't abandon his family in their time of need. This makes Yuya's siblings cry, and they ask for his forgiveness. Later Yuya returns to his classmates, and he apologizes to them for making them worry. Ryo states that Yuya was amazing, and Shingo asks him how Yuya jumped from the 4th floor. Everyone then praises Yuya, and they think that he is really amazing. The story continues, and Yuya is about to enter the other world, but before entering he remembers that Owen told him that this forest is known as the Great Demon Territory, and it is one of the most dangerous places in the country. He mentioned that the monsters that Yuya defeated easily can destroy a large town if they appeared in a group. Yuya then wonders why the sage was living in a place like this, and he enters the other world. The scene cuts to Yuya deep in the forest, and he defeats some monsters. He thought that he would encounter stronger monsters if he went deeper into the forest, but he doesn't find any strong monsters, and he decides to continue another day. As he is about to leave, Yuya notices a dog being beaten by an Orc King, and he notices that the Orc King's level is 600 and it has an attack power of 20,000. He feels bad for the dog, but he thinks that he can't take down a monster like that with his current strength. Yuya tries to leave, but his conscience doesn't allow him to leave the dog like that, and he decides to face the Orc King. Yuya then attacks the Orc King with his spear, and he prepares for a tough battle, but he notices that the Orc King is already dead. Yuya then remembers that he was able to defeat the bloody ogre like this as well, even when he was at level 1, and he wonders who was the sage that made weapons like these. Yuya then takes a look at the injured dog, and he decides to give it some potion, but the dog is wary of him, and it soon faints due to its injuries. Yuya then feeds the potion to the dog, and he is able to save it from dying. The dog isn't wary of Yuya anymore, and he asks the dog if he has any parents, and the dog looks sad, and Yuya figures out that the dog is all alone just like him. Yuya then asks the dog if he would like to live with him, and the dog is happy to hear this. Yuya then gets the taming skill, and he notices that he can use this skill to make monsters into his companion. Yuya checks the dog's stats, and he finds out that it's a black Fenrir, and it has some really high stats. Yuya then thinks of a name for it, and he decides to name it Night after the color of its fur. Night likes his name, and Yuya then checks out the items dropped by the Orc King. He notices that among other items he also got a hairbrush this time, and he uses the brush to brush up Night's fur, and Night enjoys it. He notices that his level still hasn't gone up, and he thinks that he can't do anything about it, and he will eventually find out how the leveling system works. The scene cuts to Yuya heading out to school, and he leaves Night at his home. At school, Yuya asks his classmates if they know about any pet stores, as he has a dog now. Kaede asks Yuya what kind of dog he has, and if he has a photo of the dog. Yuya states that he doesn't have a photo as he doesn't own a smartphone, and Ryo is surprised to find out that Yuya doesn't have a smartphone. Yuya states that he never really had a need for one, and Ryo then mentions that there is a pet store in the shopping district near the school. Shingo states that they also have an animal hospital there, and Yuya states that he will visit it after school. Both Ryo and Shingo mention that they won't be able to join him today, as they got things to do, and Kaede then offers to go with him. Yuya is glad to hear this, and Kaede gets embarrassed thinking that this could be considered a date. The scene cuts to Yuya returning to his house, and Knight welcomes him home. Yuya mentions that he has bought some things for him, and he states that his friend helped him out in picking up these things. Yuya then shows Knight a collar and a leash, and he states that he needs to wear it when they go out for a walk. Yuya then puts the collar on Knight, and he takes him out to the park for a walk. Everyone at the park stares at Yuya and his dog, and they think that Yuya is handsome, and his dog is cute. Yuya then meets Kaori in the park, and she greets him. Kaori notices the dog, and Yuya introduces Knight to Kaori. Kaori wonders if she can pet Knight, and Yuya allows her to pet him after getting permission from Knight. Kaori thinks that Knight has really fluffy fur, and she asks Yuya what kind of dog he is. Yuya mentions that he doesn't know that, as he just picked him up randomly, and Kaori thinks that he looks happy to be picked up by him. Miyu then comes across Yuya in the park, and Yuya wonders what she is doing here. Miyu states that she lives in this neighborhood, and she always takes a walk around this time. Yuya then introduces Miyu and Kaori to each other, and the crowd notices Miyu. Miyu thinks that they are being too conspicuous, and she asks Yuya if he will continue to take walks around here. Yuya mentions that he is planning to do that, and Miyu hopes that they can meet again. A crowd then starts to gather due to Miyu, and she leaves after saying farewell to everyone. Kaori then asks Yuya if he is dating Miyu, and Yuya mentions that he isn't, and they just met once. Yuya then mentions that he is not good enough for her, and Kaori states that it's absolutely not true. An old lady then cries for help, and she asks for someone to catch a thief running away with her purse. Yuya tells Knight to chase after the purse snatcher, and he goes to check up on the old lady with Kaori. The old lady mentions that she is fine, and she is worried about her purse. Yuya tells her to not worry about it, and Knight then drags the purse snatcher back to the old lady. Yuya asks Kaori to call the police, and the purse snatcher then tries to attack Kaori to stop her from calling the police. Yuya stops the purse snatcher, and he takes him down. The crowd is amazed to see Yuya take down the purse snatcher, and they think that he is really cool. Kaori then thanks Yuya for saving her once more, and he then hands the purse snatcher over to the police. The scene then cuts to Yuya in the forest of another world, and he thinks that he needs to conquer this forest soon, so he can go in and out of it at will. Yuya then defeats the monsters in the forest one after another, and he notices a crystal deer in the forest. He notices that the deer has some really high stats, and he finds out that it can use magic as well. He wonders what he should do about it, and the deer then notices Yuya even though he is using his oneness skill to hide his presence. Yuya then decides to fight the deer, seeing no other choice, and Knight attacks one of its horns. Yuya then notices that the deer can use two different types of magic from both of his horns, and he asks Knight to make an opening for him to take down the deer. Knight ricochets around the deer, and he attacks it, which creates an opening for Yuya to take down the deer. Yuya then thinks that the deeper they go into the forest, the more flexible they need to be, and this makes for a perfect training exercise. Yuya then checks out the drop items left behind by the deer, and he notices that there is a portable bath among the drop items. He checks out how the bath works, and the cube transforms into a bathtub. He thinks that this is great, but it's too dangerous to take a bath here, and he goes back to his house. He takes a dip in the bathtub with Knight at his house, and he thinks that having a bath feels great. The next day Yuya fights some more monsters in the forest, and we see that he is fighting a needle roller. He thinks that the monster is really fast, and he thinks that there must be a limit to how long it can keep up its speed. The monster then attacks Yuya in full speed, and Yuya dodges its attack, and the monster crashes into a rock. The monster gets stuck in the rock, and Yuya finishes it with a sword strike. Yuya then notices that he has leveled up to level 240, and he notices that Knight has leveled up as well. The rock where the needle roller crashed then breaks, and a cave is revealed underneath it. Yuya goes in to explore the cave, and he doesn't detect any monsters inside it. The torches inside the cave then lights up, and Knight leads Yuya to a corpse. Yuya notices that the corpse is holding a book, and the book is called the Book of Sages. Yuya looks inside the book, and he is surprised to see its contents. Elsewhere we see that a man is asking an assassin to assassinate someone for him, and the assassin states that her services don't come cheap. The story continues with Yuya finding the Book of Sages, and he wonders if it's the same sage who was the owner of his house. He reads the book, and he finds out that the sage could do anything. He was good at magic, swordsmanship, martial arts, and even cooking, singing, and painting. He had mastered everything, and thus he had entered the realm of God while he was still alive, but he turned down the invitation of the gods to join them. The book mentions that being too powerful is not good, and it will eventually make everyone around you afraid, just like it did for him. Yuya reads that the sage doesn't want Yuya to live an isolated life like him, and Yuya wonders what he should do to make everyone around him not afraid of him. Yuya then hears a voice telling him that he needs to build a relationship that he can trust, and Yuya realizes that the sage is talking to him through the book. The sage tells Yuya that he needs to find someone who he can trust, and he can tell that person everything about himself, and they would still be there for him. Yuya thinks that this will be hard as he has never had a friend up until now. The sage then mentions that this seems a little hard for him, and he tells Yuya to have a friend at his own pace. The sage then states that he will answer any one question that Yuya has, and Yuya thinks that he wants to learn about magic. The sage then fills the book with all of his magical theories, and he states that an otherworldly body like Yuya's won't be able to use magic as he doesn't have any mana pathways. He mentions that he will give Yuya his own mana pathways, and he states that his mana pathways are considered valuable in this world, so it would be better to have him use them rather than letting them disappear. Yuya hesitates, wondering if he is worthy of such a thing, and the sage transfers his mana pathways to Yuya. The sage then hopes that Yuya can be happy unlike him, and Yuya thanks the sage, and he hopes that he can rest in peace. The scene then changes to Yuya's house, and Yuya reads the book in order to understand how to use magic. He finds out that he first needs to feel the magic energy in nature, and he tries to do so. Night also practices with him, and they both succeed in feeling the magic energy. He then reads that next he just needs to gather magic energy in his hand, and imagine the magic that he wants to invoke. He finds out that naming his own magic will make it easier for him to invoke it, and Yuya then decides to give it a try. He tries to create a water ball, and both him and Night succeed in creating it. Yuya and Night then try to launch the water ball, and the water ball takes down a few trees around the house, and Yuya is surprised to see how powerful it is. The scene then cuts to the Elsyria palace, and Owen informs the king that he has met with the person who saved the princess. He states that the man seemed like a foreigner as his name was different from theirs, and he was really surprised when the princess asked him to marry her. The king then asks him what he just said, and Owen hesitates to answer him. The king then starts destroying the throne room in anger, and he wonders how that man dared to seduce his sweet daughter. Owen then thinks that royalty is always a hassle, and the scene changes to Yuya at his school. In class, Yuya thinks that he has to be careful in deciding where to use his magic, and Miss Sawada mentions that there will be a field trip next week as per their annual schedule of events. Yuya thinks that he didn't get any schedule, and Hayato tells him that the point of their trip is to camp for 3 days and 2 nights, and get used to the new environment. Miss Sawada then announces the groups for the field trip, and Yuya is paired with Kaide, Akira, and another girl. The girl then introduces herself as Rin Kanzaki, and she states that he can call her without any honorifics. Rin then thinks that she has heard a lot of rumors about Yuya, and Akira then states that Yuya can call him the prince. Rin states that he won't be called that unless he shuts up, and Kaide states that this will be a lively group, and she will be looking forward to the trip. Yuya then mentions that he doesn't have a backpack, and he wonders what he should do. Kaide states that they should just go and buy a new one, and the scene cuts to Yuya going out with everyone to buy a backpack. Shingo then states that he never thought that he would get to hang out with Kaori, and Ryo states that he didn't expect Yuya to be friends with her. Yuya then asks why Akira didn't join them, and Shingo states that he wanted to join them, but he had some urgent business to attend to. They then go inside the mall, and they browse some shops to look for a backpack for Yuya. Kaori then picks a backpack for him, and everyone likes it. Yuya checks the bag out, and he buys it. They then go to the arcade floor of the mall, and Shingo notices the figurine of an anime character in a crane game. He thinks that he wants it, but he sucks at the crane game, and Yuya mentions that he can get it for him. Yuya thinks that this is his first time doing this, but he can pull it off thanks to his increased insight. Yuya then uses a skill to detect the center of gravity of the figurine, and he manages to get it in a single try. Kaide then tells Yuya that she wants a stuffed toy, and Yuya gets it for her. Yuya then helps Kaori, Ryo, and Rin to get the things that they wanted as well, and he can't believe that they are this happy over this, and Kaori states that this is her first time in an arcade, but she knows that Yuya is awesome. Afterwards, Ryo states that they should go to the cafe on the 7th floor, and the girls tell the guys to go first, and they state that they will go to the 13th floor to look at some fashion accessories. The guys then rest at the cafe, and Yuya drinks coffee. He thinks that it's bitter, and he states that he should have ordered melon soda instead. Ryo then states that he will show them how adults drink coffee, and he thinks that it's bitter as well. He adds lots of sugar in the coffee, and Shingo then asks Yuya if something is wrong. Yuya mentions that it just feels good to have a drink with friends, and Shingo states that they should come back again. The fire alarm then rings, and an announcement informs everyone that a fire has broken out in the 10th floor, and they should evacuate the building. Yuya notices that the smoke has already reached the 7th floor, and he thinks that it would be even worse on the upper floors. Yuya and the others then go to the stairs to evacuate, and Kaide calls Ryo and she states that they were too late to evacuate. Hearing this, Yuya rushes to the upper floors, and Ryo and Shingo try to go after him, but they are stopped by the guard. Yuya then arrives at the 13th floor, and he notices that the floor has become a sea of flames. He thinks that this is the time to use his magic, and he uses water magic to wrap himself in water and air. He then uses his detect skill to look for the girls, and he heads towards them. He finds them, and notices that they are unconscious, and he checks if there is anyone else left in the building. He notices that they are the only ones left, and he then carries the girls, and he covers them all in water. He wonders if his magical energy will be able to last till the end, and he then starts heading towards the exit, but the crumbling building stops his way. Seeing no other way out of the building, Yuya decides to break the floor to get out, and meanwhile we see that his friends are worried about them. The firefighters mention that they can only go inside after subsiding the fire to some extent, and they then hear a loud noise. We see that Yuya is breaking all the floors, and he finally reaches the ground level. The firefighters then get them out of the building, and Ryo and Shingo tell Yuya that he should not do something so reckless. Yuya apologizes to them, and he mentions that they were scolded by the firefighters after this incident, and Kaori's father thanked Yuya for saving her life. He states that it was hard to cover up how he helped them, and while returning home Yuya thinks that it must be great to have a family. He then enters the house, and Knight welcomes him inside, and he mentions that he has brought a feast for him today. The scene then changes to the other world, and a girl is fighting a talking rabbit. The rabbit is on the defensive, and he dodges all of the girl's attacks. The rabbit asks the girl who she is, and he asks her why she is attacking a deity like him. The rabbit notices that the girl has the aura of evil, and he notices that the techniques she uses belong to the deity of archery. The girl mentions that she is here to make an offer, and she states that she is going to destroy this world which is devoid of salvation. She states that he can choose to help her to achieve her goals, and she leaves saying that she will come back later for his answer. The rabbit thinks that he needs to stop the girl, and he thinks that he needs to pass his techniques to someone as the deity of kicks. Thanks for watching parts 1 to 6, the rest of the parts will be on my channel. Please like and share the video if you enjoyed it, and make sure to hit the subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell to keep getting